Mahadev Shambho Shiva Shankara Mahadev Shambho.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anantmala Potdar, Ehsaas woman of Delhi, and I'm happy to welcome you all to an amazing session of Tête-à-tea, an initiative of Conversationalist Foundation at this beautiful property of the Connaught. Today's event is in association with the Connaught IHCL selections and with the support of Ehsaas women of Delhi. Today's event enjoys the noble patronage of Shree Cement Limited as their CSR activity initiative. Based in Kolkata, Prabha Khaitan Foundation is dedicated towards social, cultural welfare and humanitarian causes. For the past 4 decades, the organization has been dedicatedly working towards promotion of literature, heritage and culture for over 40 cities in India and abroad with a network of committed volunteers and associates. The session of Tête-à-tea, organized by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, is a freewheeling conversation where eminent personalities from varied walks of life come on board and speak on a particular subject. And the topic for today is the cultural literary connect between India and Lithuania. Today's session is with Diana Mickevičienė, that's what ma'am told me, and I extend my warm welcome to you, ma'am. Diana Mickevičienė, Ambassador of Lithuania to India and a seasoned diplomat with 28 years of experience, previously served as ambassador to China. She holds a BA in philosophy, an MA in history of culture and social anthropology, and a diploma in international relations from Vilnius University. Mickevičienė has authored All of My Indias, a combination of the diary of her studies in India, her social observations, and her academic knowledge in Indian studies. She has also published a number of academic articles in Indian studies, including Indo-European studies, studies of classical Indian dance, and historical relations between India and Lithuania. Fluent in English, French, and Russian, with proficiency in Hindi and Spanish, she is passionate about Asian and Lithuanian history and culture. In conversation with her, we have Neelima Dalmia Adhar, who is a multifaceted personality and author herself and Ehsaas woman of Delhi. So without any further ado, I hand it over to Neelima ji.
Before I begin this exciting, scintillating, I hope, conversation with the ambassador, I have 2 confessions to make. First is that I scouted around trying to find the native dress of Lithuania so that I could surprise everybody. And since we're talking about the ties between India and Lithuania, since Diana is wearing half an Indian dress, I thought my attempt to wear a full native folk dress of Lithuania would look cute, but unfortunately, I couldn't lay my hands on one. The second is because there's a surprise for you in this absolutely celebrated, accomplished, erudite lady who's sitting on my left. So to match her erudition, for 4 days I have been scouting around doing a crash course in Lithuanian, which you will be subjected to. Never mind if I say it all wrong, at least full marks for the attempt. So here goes. Sveiki ir labas vakaras. Did I say that right? And a very warm welcome to you. We have amidst us today a very distinguished personality who has so graciously consented to take us on this exciting journey that perhaps very few people in this room have ever been on before. This is a journey that promises to take us into her life, her mind, her beautiful country. the Republic of Lithuania. Please welcome Ambassador Diana Mickevičienė to today's session. And by the way, I sent her a desperate message in the morning. Send me a voice note on how to say your surname. And since then, it's been on a chant in my head. So Diana is not only a storehouse of knowledge, talent, scholarliness, but is also a keen historiographer, a travel enthusiast, a polyglot, an Indophile, if I can say so, and an author who has several publications that add to her glorious list of accomplishments. Ambassador Diana knows and speaks several languages, is well versed in Hindi. She has studied Sanskrit, not an easy task, ask me, which got our Prime Minister Modi to mention in one of his episodes of Man Ki Baat, where he said that संस्कृत की अहमियत को समझिए, लिथुआनिया की राजदूत संस्कृत अच्छी तरह से जानती और बोलती हैं. And for that we should give her a good hand. So clearly, Diana's Sanskrit and Hindi is far better than my little tuta-puta Lithuanian. But here we go. Her knowledge of Sanskrit, I'm sure, has deeply enriched her knowledge of Indian history, mythology, archaeology of our ancient lands, our temples, our forts and monuments that she has visited, some of which I have to confess I only learnt of recently when my friend accompanied her to Badami in Aihole to see the 6th century cave temples in Karnataka. So Diana is better versed with Indian spots of tourism and interest than probably most of us in this room, and we can give her a hand for that. With that rich tapestry of experience and knowledge, I'm told, Diana, you are an encyclopedia on facts and figures, and you reel off dates and data like a new age superfast computer ROM. So let's begin this much-awaited voyage into the mind, the heart, and the homeland of this iconic genius. Ambassador Diana, a Lithuanian saying I read somewhere, and pardon me again if I pronounce it incorrectly, Iš kur kojos dygsta, which I believe means, can you tell us that? And say it correctly for everybody.
Well, the word by word would be where your legs start or grow from. But the ultimate sense of it is that, you're being fast. I mean, your legs are growing so that you really rush and do things.
Right.
So you use your legs for the good benefit, right? That would be
fast has many connotations. I won't get into that. So what I understood and I've used in my text is that a Lithuanian won't give you a lecture. They'll show you where the legs grow from. So in that spirit, Diana, would you take us to the place where the legs grow from and tell us where and how your romance with India began?
Neelima, thank you so much. You have praised me so much, and I'm really worried to, not to justify your
But it wasn't just me.
Utmost expectations. I hope I'm audible. I'm not sure if I'm visible because I'm green on green and I'm blending into this. I mean, what a contrast from you where you're really shining and standing out. I chose to blend in not knowing that this is all the very green hotel. But, okay, so to start with, it's a story where I really have to think, and I had done my thinking last year about the same time when I was attending one very small, very private and lovely conversation about a book, about the autobiography of Muzaffar Ali in the presence of himself, where it struck me suddenly, and now I actually stand by what struck me at that time, that it was probably at the age of 12 or 11 when I first saw Umraujan,
Wow.
when it totally blew out my roof, as we say. That's another. It's another saying in Lithuanian. To blow your roof means to blow your mind. So I came back so impressed. I remember, I grew up in a village. Our cinema theater was very tiny, basic one, and I came back home so dumbstruck, I have to say, about I didn't even know what about, but about the beauty, probably about the aesthetics of music, colors, decor, cloths, everything. And I mean, to me, it was not like, we really are far, far away from Avadi culture there in Lithuania. And when you are 12, you had not even, and I was growing in Soviet Union, where traveling abroad was like unthinkable almost, and traveling to India was like traveling to the moon. So, as impossible. So I only remember that episode that I came back so dumbstruck that I drew the face of what I thought was Umraujan in her decorations, that massive, forehead ornament that she was wearing and something. And I just didn't know how to express this thing which happened to me. I don't have a drawing and I don't really draw. That's not really my strong point, So, but I remember as a child, to express what happened to you, I probably chose what the child chooses in the most natural way. Take a piece of paper, a pencil, colors, and you drew. And that was something I recollected when I was sitting in that discussion, where I had just read the book. Before the discussion, I made sure I read the book, and I was very interested because then I rewatched that film several times in different stages of my life. Having come to India, having visited it, having spent time as a student, then this classical dance was also something that interested me. I have a very good friend, a Lithuanian, who is a professional Kathak dancer. So I saw her often rehearsing and performing, and the ornaments were also very. So I rewatched that film, and I still stand by my statement that it's one of the most wonderful things,
Totally. Totally.
One of the most wonderful things. Here is the lady in whose house this discussion was happening, and who is to be blamed that I recollected my, reasons of falling in love with India for all and, forever. But that's probably one episode. We always joke, in India always joke, and you never know, it's probably not a joke so much that there is something karmic, right? You believe it. I'm a Catholic, so I'm not supposed to be really believing in that. But apparently I do, probably, because there are things that just happen to you. And last year now, you mentioned Sanskrit, and there is a reason why I took interest in Sanskrit and I learned it. The reason is that early on, in my childhood, I read that our native language, Lithuanian, is a close relative of Sanskrit for reasons unknown to science. But if you line up of the European languages, which are part of that big Indo-European language family, they are the closest. And especially they are the closest if you take out classical dead languages of Europe, like Latin and ancient Greek, which are not spoken anymore. So it is the closest sister language of speaking, of spoken languages. So I was very fascinated by this idea, and as soon as I got this opportunity, I joined university, and the same year, a young scholar, came back from Moscow who started teaching a course in Sanskrit. So I immediately enrolled. It was not an obligatory course, but I was doing philosophy, so I had to study ancient Latin, ancient Greek, and I picked it up also Sanskrit voluntarily, just because I grabbed the chance. So since then, it's been a journey. I can't claim I speak Sanskrit because we don't study it as a spoken language. We study it in probably all the Western universities. You don't speak. You learn to read and to interpret and to understand. But then whatever you do with India further on, is it philosophy, whether it's classical arts, there is Sanskrit all over. You have the concepts, you have the various statements, various propositions that describe certain things which are not even possible to be translated unless you really know word by word and even beyond words. And now the same professor who taught me my very beginning, of Sanskrit, we invited him last year. He gave a roadshow of talks on this linguistic connection between Lithuanian and Sanskrit. And he tells me that the name of the river on which I grew up literally in my, small town has a Sanskrit name, because the name I'm so familiar because, I spent so much time on the banks of this river. It doesn't translate in any way from Lithuanian language, but it does translate perfectly from Sanskrit. So how can't it be a karmic connection? Like, we don't even know, but it is there something, So the name of the river is Siesartis, and Sisarti is to flow for the river, right? And here you have a river. It's a tiny, very small, very beautiful river, which has a name that doesn't translate from our language, but translates from Sanskrit.
What is the name of the river?
Siesartis. Siesartis.
Saraswati. Sounds very similar to Saraswati.
It's Saraswati, but Sisarti would be the verbal, form in the dictionary, which is just too close to have it as a coincidence. Yeah. Especially knowing that this relationship is not an accidental one, and it's not about borrowed words. I mean, words can be borrowed between cultures, right? But there is a fundamental way in which the grammars, structures are connected. So it's much more than words. And sometimes when I studied Sanskrit, it's not to say that we understand Sanskrit by being Lithuanian. No, not at all. You still need to study hard and very hard. And you all know that Sanskrit is a difficult language, right? But once you go into a deeper grammar of, declination of nouns, conjugation of verbs, this connection is very striking, because the endings of those multiple forms are similar. And you have to memorize all of them.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Well, truly. I was going to say, Riti Aki Miss. Raiti Aki Miss. Am I saying that right? That clearly you don't just enjoy the view, you swallow it with your eyes. And from whatever you have just encapsulated, you have touched upon every single point that I had studied about you and which I was going to put into my questions to you. So we'll come to that again. But I think I'm getting better and better at the Lithuanian little attempt. And maybe you'll be so impressed that by the end of it, you'll give me a free multiple entry into Lithuania for rewarding my efforts. So come on, we move on to India and Lithuania. While they seem distant geographically, for you, nothing is far away, for it can only be, again I'm trying, Uzde Vini. Say that again. Uzde Vini Uyutu. Is that right? Uzde Vini U. Which means that it can only be 9 seas away. So for you, you are a living epitome of what has been only 9 seas away, because you have traversed the journey between India and Lithuania so beautifully in every aspect: culture, literature, art, music, the embodiment of cinema, which is tough. I mean, at the age of 12, if you were able to understand the culture of Awadh, that is really commendable. And I feel that there are some distinctive cultural and literary connects between our two lands. Did you, in your experience of finding historical connections, feel that there's a strong influence between the culture and literature exchanges between our two countries?
Definitely yes. Well, už 9 jūrų, 9 seas seems like a long way. But, and today, of course, we know that, 5,000, 6,000 kilometers is nothing really, because we can just take a plane and fly. But what was surprising to me was that the people of, different continents reached out to each other much more than we are aware of it. And I'm very much aware of India's history, the colonial, painful, hundreds of years. and that sense of, almost the inferiority complex that it left the nation, by, of being subjugated by someone very far away in a tiny, nation. There are a lot of myths that we are told to believe, that, we were always like that, we had never been better than that. And I come from, opposite to India, I come from a very, very small place, but yeah, we were also occupied and colonized by over 100 years. And again, we have the same imprint that, we've always been low, we have been always unworthy, we've always been, told to listen to someone who knows better, right? He or she, or they come from abroad and they bring your army and they know better. And then once you really study, you realize that no, your people were reaching out, traveling, exchanging, trading, thousands of years ago. It's just that we do not know these things. So when I was like you started with that national costume. That's a nice thing, because one thing I always tell people, when I was preparing for my posting in India, I had a national costume made for myself, and I chose a piece of jewelry which is the exact copy, the certified copy of a necklace that was found in one of the burial grounds in the 12th century. So it's an exact copy done by a certified archaeologist cum jeweler. So she sort of made it identical. And there are cowrie shells there.
Oh, there are cowrie shells.
And cowrie shells can only come from Indian Ocean. There's just no other way. The origin.
Yes, wow.
So in the 12th century, a noble lady was buried in Lithuania, probably some chieftain's wife or chief lady herself. We don't know, because we always attribute that all the chiefs were men, but even that is not true. Who was wearing a necklace that was locally made, but had cowries from Indian shores, had glass beads which were done somewhere in the Viking land in Denmark or Sweden, and had some local elements there. We use a lot of brass, and these brass plates which are combined in that string have very typically Lithuanian symbols, engravings, So it's a purely local thing, but done from the components from all over the world. And it's a very telling thing that we just don't know so many things, right? And there, when you dig deeper, you find out these things. People travel, people exchange. There might have been intermediaries on Indian history. Now I'm just look forward to reading the new book by William Dalrymple, What Ancient India Gave to the World. I think it's being released right now. But so many times in the history, even Indian history has been portrayed as a receiver or recipient, but he argues, and very well argumented argument is it, that no, India was an equal partner in that trade between Romans. So it's not the Romans who came only, but it was, both sides going to the others. So the amber that is part of our national costume and part of our identity, the Baltic Sea amber, which is considered to be one of the best, variations
Precious,
of amber in the world.
Yes.
Was very sought after item by Romans, and definitely they brought it to India. They also, I saw at the National Museum in Taiwan, there are amber beads from the Baltic shores which were, which reached even there. So there we are talking about the very early times, but even later, with the trade. So for example, next year we will be marking 400 years of the first recorded Lithuanian who came to India. Because, many things are unrecorded. In West, we are a little marked by that obsession to have a record as a proof. In India, you believe many things which are not recorded, but they've been conveyed orally in a very precise way, so that scholars actually trust that way. From Vedic chanting, but in other areas. Once it's been conveyed, you put trust in this. We don't. We are, we are a civilization which believes what's written. So last year we celebrated 700 years of our capital city, Vilnius, but it's only the recorded mentioning of a city, which means it had existed before it was mentioned, right? But we celebrate the recorded date as a proof of existence. So also next year we are marking 400 years of the first Lithuanian who is recorded as having visited India. In Goa, he was a Jesuit priest. He went further. He died in China. But that's the first time. I mean, definitely there were earlier cases. It's just that we don't know. So sometimes I face that skepticism. Why do we need to dig into history? Why does it matter? I still think it matters because it gives you the understanding about yourself so what much more you were probably, especially for the nations which have been told, to listen to others, especially by the nations who have been told whose history has been written by the others, right? So I think it's a very, very relevant thing. And then, you just discover things, confirmations about yourself. Last week we were researching those temples in Badami, me and Bindu, and the ornaments, the drapes, the whatever you see, you have a very clear confirmation. Yes, Indians were there wearing this thing, so many centuries ago. So, this is just details. I think, much more comprehensive view of the past is very important for every nation which looks forward to the future.
Yeah, I agree that documented history is very, very important, especially if we want to go back to our roots to understand, where we have descended from, what was the mixing of the cultures. And I have this very strong belief that I have descended. I'm a reincarnated Draupadi. Now go back and figure that out. Before I go on, can I just take you back to the Sanskrit? I understand that there is a priceless dictionary created in your country, which is about words in Lithuanian that translate into Sanskrit, or maybe I'm saying that wrong. Could you little bit tell us about that?
Yes, we have this white little book, as sometimes we call it, and maybe, Rasa, maybe we can just circulate it so that everybody can see it, because we have it, a hidden version. So it's the small dictionary of identical words, Lithuanian Sanskrit identical words, but don't take it as a comprehensive thing because it's a teaser. It's meant to be a teaser. The scholar, who is the same professor who taught me, Sanskrit so many years ago, 30 years ago, he chose 108 words, which is a symbolic number and sacred number, just to tease and give an idea and the taste of the connection that is there. And I said also that words just don't even carry full meaning, because words can travel and words can be, exchanged. There is also grammatical structure behind the words. So, for example, little reflection of that would be in the two famous phrases from Upanishads, from Indian philosophy. There are many, the postulates of Indian philosophy. One is kas tvamasi and the answer is tat tvamasi, right? So in Lithuanian language, it sounds identical. Kas tu esi, tat tu esi. So that probably reflects it better.
Just interrupting you, Diana, are they words which phonetically match the Sanskrit word, or are the meanings translatable into and related to Sanskrit?
So it's both. It's both, because as I said, the phonetic travel or journey of, how vowels or other sounds change might change on the way. In India, you use a lot of aspirated sounds, letters. So we only have one D, one T. You have D, T, D, and many others, right? But that comes with time, and we are separated geographically, very, very long distance. But another thing which is very peculiar to this connection, that it's not random words, but it's words of very primordial nature, like family connections, animals, very simple household, the notions that describe household. These are the ones we share, which means that the latter that you add is an acquired, way of speaking because of your geography, because of your nature, because you develop specific ways of life. But this indicates to a very primordial connection, which means that two languages are very close to that proto-language, from the parent language, from which many European languages. And the interesting thing, since I have tried to study and understand that connection, is that if you talk about several centuries ago, Lithuanian might not have been a unique language, because many European languages share some similarities and quite important ones. However, most of European languages have modernized themselves in the last several centuries to the extent that you don't even recognize the language. So the English of the 10th century or 12th century is very, very different from the English of today. Look at German, look at Romance languages. It will be, I mean, the language is in evolution, and the evolution is one way to simplify, to modernize. Because especially, because all the modernization happens in the cities. So urban people like it shorter, simpler. Now there are also campaigns about simplifying English language. Why do we need to write so many letters if we don't pronounce them, right? So that has always been the natural urge of a human being, to make things more practical and simple.
Scientific.
And here you have this quaint Lithuanian language, which is awfully difficult, awfully complicated, as complicated structurally, consisting of so many particles like Sanskrit is. So you understand why Sanskrit is so complicated, because look at Sanskrit and Hindi and other modern languages. Again, this is so simplified. The grammar is completely simplified. Words, some of them are sourced from Sanskrit, but they are only used in the particular official or formal context. Yes, because people at the forefront of civilization like to make it very simple and more simple, with time. And Lithuanian language, apparently, from probably 16th, 17th century, it went into the total opposition to the city, because the city elites adopted other languages. They spoke other languages. First, it was a church language, which was Latin, German for commerce, old Russian or Proto-Russian that was used to govern, because our Grand Dukes governed a lot of Russian lands at that time, close to even Moscow. So elites spoke other languages, and people in the villages spoke this language. And village people, they don't care about modernization. They keep whatever has been given to them by their forefathers. So I believe, again, I'm not that authority to state it, very firmly, but I think that's the only explanation, tenable explanation, why the language hidden in the villages becomes so a repository of all ancient structures and words. Because yes, and also by the 19th, end of 18th, 19th century, it becomes a language which the Russian Tsar tries to eradicate completely. So it becomes an opposition. Like, it has to be hidden. It has to be, they ban the script, they ban the language. So people have to hide the fact that they speak this language. That even gives more motivation to keep it as it is, right? Because it becomes that, element or instrument of resistance. So the connection is definitely much larger than Sanskrit-Lithuanian. It's a very strong Indo-European connection.
And many.
But it is in the Lithuanian language that this is most visible, because it has preserved the most ancient and archaic structures and words.
Okay, let's have some fun.
Too serious, right?
I came across this very interesting saying, "Garbano tos mentis." And if I read right, it means Lithuanians don't have a dirty mind. They just have very, very curly thoughts. Now, where did this saucy idiom come from?
Well, I don't know. We just think, that you can, yes. It's not, it could be dirty, obscene, it could be complicated also.
Yeah.
But the meaning is that, yes, curly is a way to convey that things are not that simple, right? And not so straightforward, and probably very different from what you think, right?
And then let's come to your famous pink soup. Tell us a little bit about your pink soup. I've been salivating just reading about it.
Okay, we also have an Indian name for it,
Yeah.
Chukandar ka raita.
Oh, you've de-romanticized it.
Yes, I've had this raita in on several occasions, and I have to say it is close. But to be frank, it's not that popular in India. You come across such a thing, but it's not not like everyday thing. Not that it's a rare thing. I was told it in India. It is probably from Kerala, right? I've seen various Indian spices added to it. So our pink soup is, it is a bit of a legend for a country which has a short summer, It is quite legendary soup because our summers last 3 months probably, and it's a cold soup. So for those who know European cuisine better, we sometimes say it's Lithuanian gazpacho, the pink gazpacho, because it's a cold soup, which you only have in warm climate. For us, it's short time. In India, it's so good because we have them almost all year round. And this color is so pink, it's Barbie pink. It's just incredibly pink, So very often when I treated, my foreign guests to this soup, I would see that, sometimes people like,
Is it artificial color?
it's sort of,
Yeah,
they want to reject it because they think it's chemical.
Yeah.
Believe me, you just mix beetroot and yogurt and it becomes naturally very, very
we've
pink.
all had that
So
on our
pink
table.
that you have to really look at protect your white gloves and be. So when we started serving it, once a year there is this Europe Day celebration, and all the European Union countries throw a reception with their own foods. We often always try to bring in this food, this pink soup. But when you meet someone with a white shirt and a pink stain,
You know where it came from.
you know very well that he or she has tried our soup, So yes, it's beetroot, which is grated normally in thin slices. Yogurt, which is also, cucumber, which is grated, and yogurt, and then whatever you may add. There are thousands of ways. Every house makes it differently. So just like any home food in an Indian house, you would have, one curry would be very different from, the same thing in someone else's house. So it's just like this, we use it with different type of yogurt, but Indian dahi suits it perfectly. So, all our helpers at home in Lithuanian homes, when you hire an Indian lady to help you in the kitchen, they all know it because it's so simple.
It's easy.
It's just so simple. One sacred thing you can't omit is dill, soya.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you absolutely need to have. And soya is not available during after monsoon. So that's again, we Lithuanians have to freeze a lot of soya in our freezer to last us till November when the fresh dill comes.
So you've just demysticized the pink soup.
I can talk about history also because the history of this pink soup is very interesting, and it's very reflective of our history. Lithuania in the Middle Ages was a big country, a big duchy, kingdom. It was for a very short while when the king was crowned in the 13th century, and then immediately he died several years later. So later we were ruled by the Grand Dukes, who ruled huge areas in Belarus, Ukraine, parts of Russia, up down to the Black Sea. And the Black Sea, and specifically Crimea, the Crimea that you hear so much, which is now occupied by Russia, was in early ages inhabited by Greeks. Greeks were sailors, and they were sailing all over in Mediterranean, but also in the Black Sea. They were called Pontic Greeks. So we lived there. Then the Tatars and the splinters of Mongol Tatar Empire came and settled. So it's a very nice, very interesting area where Turkic and Greek and Slavic and Baltic features mix up. So this soup apparently is not really there anymore, but we believe that since the Greeks have its very yogurt-based culture, Greek yogurt, tzatsikis, and all sorts of spreads which are based, it can only be from that it was inspired, because otherwise it's quite atypical for our food. So yeah, I tend to believe that it reflects on that, glorious past.
So you still don't have the answer to Golgappa. I don't think any European country can match that. We have very little time. I have lots more questions, so I'm going to cut them short, and I'm going to come to what I think is quick, rapid-fire questions for you. Diana, do you believe in rebirth and reincarnation? Yes or no? That's yes in the south. Have we got our answer? Do you think you were an Indian in some life? Yes. If you were to reincarnate, which nationality would you choose to be? You can't nod your head for that.
That's a very good question, but I think I'll answer you next time because I have to really think very, very carefully.
What is the most exciting and memorable experience of your stay in India?
So many of them. Very, very difficult to... No, it's impossible.
That Bindu's phone got stolen by the monkey, and you had to what, did you bribe the monkey to give it back?
No, there were definitely much more memorable. Well, I don't know. Maybe the days when I joined in my Indian friends' family for their pilgrimage in Rameshwaram, and we were taking a dip in that holy Rama Setu, and we were nearly washed away by the waves. Not in a very dangerous way, but everybody, all the parents and grandparents were rolling over in the sea because the current is very strong there. And this drive on the sand, maybe it's in the Himalayas, maybe it's so many, festivals and places where you feel very good, very welcome, very... Oh, no, the best. I remember this episode. Very often, I was very interested in watching the Hindu practices, and I traveled as a student and backpacker a lot. And, in so many places you are not allowed to go. As a non-Hindu, you cannot go to, especially in the south, it's for non-Hindus only. For Hindus only. So I was, of course, you have to respect this, and I'm very disciplined. I go to the point where it's okay, take pictures if it's okay, and then study, do my, because I was very interested in architecture, but also in the ritual and right side of it. And so I'm okay. And then I'm going to this place called Tiruvannamalai, which is, it's we sometimes joke it's a test of sobriety, because if you are able to pronounce it, then you are okay, And there is this beautiful temple there, huge, old, typical, with the huge South Indian towers. And I'm walking barefoot, ready to be stopped anytime, and told that, I cannot pass beyond that point, and nobody's stopping me, and I'm approaching, there are no crowds, and I don't know, it was such a very spiritual place. I just felt so welcome and so nice. And then suddenly I felt a little unsafe, and I stopped someone, a priest, and I said, "Can I go further?" He just stared at me blankly. "What's the problem?" I said, "I'm a non-Hindu." He looked at me, "Non-Hindu?" That just showed me to go. I felt so nice, at some point it's irrelevant, what faith are you? You're Hindu, non-Hindu. He was a priest, but to him it was a question which had no relevance at all. And I felt very, very nice and welcome. I went, I did my darshan and went back.
That's so lovely. Do you have one last message for us, if possible in Hindi?
Oh, you should have warned me. You should have warned me, even in Hindi. And now first I have to look for the message.
Okay, just
the message and then translate it. Go to Badami. Badami Jai.
Wow.
It's a wonderful place. And I think it needs a little support, because, these temples are amazing. It's just Badami Ahole Patadakal blew our mind away. The beauty, because it's also the genesis and the origin of the temple architecture, the rites of worship that I think you all need to, Hindu, non-Hindu, practicing, not practicing, it's again no relevance, but it's just beautiful. It's very important part of your heritage. I'm surprised that so many people have not even heard about it. So I say Badami has to have UNESCO recognition, and everybody has to go there.
Fabulous,
very simple
fabulous.
And very, easy.
बहुत धन्यवाद, Ambassador Diana Mickevičienė. Tu esi grazie. Did I say that right? You are beautiful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The floor is open for you if you would like to ask Ambassador Diana any questions. Yes, enjoy. Just give him the mic. Okay, you ask.
Hi, I just want to ask you. You've studied India well. Do you feel that women over here are as suppressed or not suppressed as in your country?
No, there is no answer to this question. I don't think we can say suppressed or not suppressed because, well, I'm very proud to say that now for example, I represent, as ambassador of a country, I represent the historically first government which came less than 4 years ago, which is fully gender balanced. It is an indication. It is an indication. It's not fully in the sense that it's not 50, but it's 40% women, and the lady is prime minister, speaker of the parliament is prime minister, so it is very gender balanced, and it didn't happen randomly. It was promoted, and it was, the parties, the coalition made it a point to be a statement of policy. So I think it is very important, and we are coming to this from a very long and sad story. So again, India, it has it has incredibly amazing, strong women, and I really admire so many, women I know, that I can't say that, just like that, women in India are oppressed. But that there are so many systemic problems, and especially in the poorer populations, yes, and where are they not? In so many countries you have this, and it might be a complex and very, historically, lengthy process, which is very difficult to undo. There is this duality in Indian culture, which me as a scholar, if I wear a scholar's cap, I say there is some duality in which a goddess is worshipped to that extent that it gives, they say sometimes that, there is this little crook which makes A into E in the Devanagari script. So Shiva is only Shiva because Parvati's crook is over. Otherwise it's Shava. It's Shava is a dead body, right? And at the same time, worshipping the goddess, so many women have no rights and are in a very disadvantaged and subservient position. But again, in Europe, speaking about Europe, women look very empowered, but what we find ourselves in, like, we don't have domestic help. I mean, you have to be super duper rich family to have servants in Europe, which means that woman is working and all the household is on her because she can't delegate, she can't pay anyone else. So, there's a lot of debate about sharing the household work, about sharing child care, elderly care. And women are stressed because, they seem to be like, yes, at the career and all that, but not all is well as it may look like. So, no straightforward answer to the question, but if I may go back to history, my studies of Indian history gave me a lot of examples that, even in Indian history, women were very empowered, much more than now, much more than a century ago. So even you don't even need to look for foreign recipes, so to say. There are examples of free, educated women which had say, which were rulers, which were ruling for decades, for in various princely states. So whatever happened in the 19th or 20th century should not set the example for the mindset. It needs to be definitely changed. Like for other countries too, like for mine, we also have names of famous ladies who made it into history by being mentioned, by being praised, by being, we've given women rights as early as 16th century in the first legal statute, of a Grand Duchy. But the reality is such that, it's a never-ending story. I don't know if there is a country in the world where you could say that this gender equality is fully achieved. Mm-hmm.
Excellency, I'd like to talk about it.
Yeah, that is one story with which I nearly killed Srinjoy because he's a theatre connoisseur who was worshipped John Gielgud and held him as an example of Britishness. And here I come and ruin this, by saying that no, he's a second generation immigrant from Lithuania. So yes, we have a small town called Gelgaudishkis, which is the birthplace of that family from where they emigrated, and there he became the. So we are very diasporic, and that's one more connection with India. We are 3 million abroad, 1.5 million abroad. 3 million at home, 1.5 million abroad, which means 1/4 of Lithuanian speakers are in diasporas all across the world. I don't know the percentages for India, but they are also very, very big, right? And your diasporas are very, very strong and very influential. So yeah, we are also rediscovering them. Some of them have lost their Lithuanian identities, and they're very happy to discover themselves. Also, I'm not speaking only about Lithuanian speakers as a nation. We also have a powerful Lithuanian Jewish, they call themselves Litvaks, the Jews from the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, who are millions and millions, of Nobel Prize winners, very famous people all around. So we have one such personality in India who's a well-known Odissi dance performer, Sharon Lowen. She is Lithuanian. Her both parents are from Lithuania. They emigrated to US, Michigan, where she grew up. But as about 10 years ago, I remember I was still carrying our very iconic black bread and heading to her mom, who knew it. I mean, her identity was very attached to that black bread and herring from our countries, and she was an old lady who survived till 102 and passed away just a couple of years ago. So yeah, we do have this identity, and we very much cherish those connections to them.
Ambassador, I had a question for you. Yeah. You mentioned that you were really taken in with the movie Umrao. Did you get a chance to visit Lucknow and walk those streets and feel that evocativeness again? And also, was there any other music or culture or literature that touched you since after that with India?
First part of the question, thanks a lot. It's very much my favorite question, because yes, I have visited Lucknow, but very recently, last June only, and it's been on my list for so long, and it took me years to realize that it was Awadhi. Of course, when I was 12, I didn't know what was Awadhi and what was Awadhi culture, but it just, what I saw impressed me deeply. But when I was very lucky, because thanks to my friend Binru, we ended up in Muzaffar Ali's house, and the youngsters party there also, and we had we saw the best of it. And then, that's so typical in India and very different, for example, from China, where I spent time. You're really very welcome in people's homes. Everybody invites you, and it's like a never-ending journey from one home to another. So in 2 days in Lucknow, we visited 3 homes at least. Somebody was there, and he took us for tea, and then another tea, and it was so fantastic, because we really went to homes and families. And I touched Rekha's skirt, because in there is a room in the Kotwara house where Muzaffar and Mira put it up, textiles, and some of them are from the shoots. So the film, the posters, I really felt I was like blending in a lot. But so many other things, and I didn't get stuck at Awadh culture or whatever, because there was a point when I was very fascinated with Tamil culture, and specifically Bharatanatyam, which I tried to learn a little bit, because I had a teacher when I was posted in Strasbourg. And then this movie, which really touched me a lot, was something I saw also in childhood. It's called, I don't know the Hindi name, but I believe it exists in Hindi. But it's a Telugu film which was called Sagara Sangamam, and redone in Tamil as Salangai Oli. It's actually a love story between the two dancers in the south. But there is one very, very beautiful moment which was cut, because when I was a child, I saw it in the Soviet edited version. And in Soviet Union, movies had to strictly be 2 hours. They would be split into 2 episodes, and only 2 hours for the 2 episodes. So they will cut out a lot of good stuff there, and they even they used to speed the songs. so that it's faster. So the songs of the same, vocal, Lata Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle, they are high pitched already. But if you speed them up, they're. So, but in that movie, Salangai Oli or Sagara Sangamam, this poor guy who learns Bharatanatyam gets some sort of a scholarship or award trip to Delhi, where he goes to a dance school, and there they are practicing Kathak, and he's a Tamil speaker or Telugu speaker, and he can't speak to these girls dancing in the school in Delhi, and they actually speak dance, mudras.
Wow.
I found it so amazing, and this episode was cut from the first version, and I saw in childhood.
Oh.
It's not there, but then I was able. My Tamil teacher gave me a Tamil version of that movie, so I watched it at home, and I discovered it's so beautiful, because you often speak about the divide between South and North, but there are so many connecting, cultural things which actually are very powerful messages about that binding Indian culture and civilization.
Beautiful. One last question.
Ambassador, this was indeed a scintillating conversation, as our host here said. I wanted to say that I read somewhere that there is a very homogeneous ethnicity in Lithuania. Would you say the Indian spiritualism, yoga, also has been inspiring for Lithuania? Has that had any impact, considering you spoke of the connection between the cultures of Lithuania and India?
See, yoga, Ayurveda reached us very recently. It was not available. It was not, on offer, so to say. We could not travel. 30 years ago, we could not even travel to India, right? So, no, in that sense. I mean, it has come now in a big way. There are schools, there are academies that study and so on. And there are also some attempts at syncretize that because, it's not that easy to transpose whatever is based on local herbs to a different climate where people have probably very different compositions. So I've heard about the attempts to actually integrate the elements and herbs and create something, because we also have ancient knowledge of herbs and some other traditional medicine. But that's a new thing. What has really influenced us from the 19th century was Indian philosophy. And in a big way, so much so that we had two people at least, intellectuals who define our identity, or maybe even three, I would say, who have developed parallel philosophical systems very close or closely inspired from Indian philosophy, Vedanta, for example, into very comprehensive writing. So they wrote volumes on everything, from individual and society, individual and the cosmos, closely inspired by Vedanta. And that was a very strong impetus in our own national identity formation process, because it was painful. We had to believe first that we can be free, because nobody will give you freedom if you don't fight for it. And fighting for it means you are very strong and you realize that you are separate, you are different. So this Sanskrit-Lithuanian connection reached us very early, mid-19th century, and it really gave a lot of impetus to reach out to Indian philosophy, because to us it was a proof of value for ourselves, while, of course, India was also colonized and so on, but Sanskrit and Indian culture were appreciated. Even in colonial times, there were scholars who said that Sanskrit had this very perfect composition as a language, it had, and so on. So to a small Lithuanian nation, to hear that, they are close to this perfect language was a big inspiration, saying that, so maybe we are also valuable, maybe we are also the ones who have to, understand ourselves and be on our own feet and demand and be free. So in that sense, that spiritual connection from India is very strong. So whatever poetry, whatever philosophy people could lay hands on, and an occupied nation, you probably would know it in Indian consciousness. An enslaved nation doesn't reach out for nice products, creams or shampoos or whatever. No, it reaches to very complicated things, philosophical things. which give you answers. So in that sense, yes, we have been very affected, very inspired by this Sanskritic connection, because it became a proof of our own value and enabled us to stand on our feet to build our own national determination.
Thank you.
Kedan Foundation, I would extend my sincerest gratitude to Diana Mickevičienė and Neelima Dalmia Adhar. I take this opportunity to thank our eminent patron, Sri Cement Limited, and our associate, the Connaught IHCL Selections. A heartfelt note of thank you to the audience for making the time to come here this evening. Your gracious presence makes this session all the more special. Hope you all enjoyed it. Prabha Khaitan Foundation encourages cross-cultural exchanges in all its events. We try to invoke a local touch through our food, clothing, and mementos, encouraging and supporting artisans and craftsmen from India. To felicitate the ambassador, we have a giveaway of chicken curry stole. Chicken curry is the signature handloom of the city of Nawabs. It is a traditional and royal textile decoration style that has become a global trend for fashion enthusiasts. Lucknowi chikankari needlework embroidery is a regal fusion of fashion and elegance. Tale of Lucknowi chicken began as white-on-white embroidery, but has evolved as a special fashion embroidery and a much-loved fashion statement appreciated for its simple yet refined look. May I now request Mrs. Anuradha Gupta, Principal of Sri Ram Millennium School, to come forward and felicitate the ambassador.
May I use the opportunity to thank the Prabha Khaitan Foundation and all the wonderful audience today, because I felt, the eyes were on me, and I really felt very close to you, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to many more conversations about all the topics.
That you didn't speak on.
Curvy or not curvy. And finally, to my absolutely fantastic partner in conversation, I have had such a pleasure. Neelima, I have never had a better partner in conversation, and I give many talks. In fact, I've so much enjoyed the way you approached it and the way you dug deep into language and other elements of Lithuanians. So may I use the opportunity to just present you a memento with a little bit of...
It is so sweet of you.
I'm sure you deserve this dictionary, because you really work very hard on the language.
We both manifested our gifts today.
And
Thank you so much.
Some amber smell from Lithuania.
Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous.
Thank you so much.
The amber capital. Yes, thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you so much. Good night, and hope to see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.